Welcome to Construction Math. Today we're going to be looking at literal equations. Now on your bell worksheet, on your note taker, think about a time that you had to rearrange something. Write it down on your note taker what you rearranged and why you did it. Teacher, pause the video, have the students complete this, have them share with their partner, and then call on non-volunteers, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. So today we're going to look at defining terminology. We're going to explain the steps in solving a literal equation, and we're actually going to solve literal equations to highlight a quantity of interest. In other words, today we're going to be looking at taking formulas and rearranging them. All right, so the math check. On your note taker, the two skills that you're going to need to be sure of today is that you can solve an equation and that you know what PEMDAS stands for. So teacher, pause the video, have the students work out the problems, and call on non-volunteers, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Let's go to our slate, and let's see about working these problems out. The first problem was an equation we needed to solve, and the first equation said it was 2x plus 1 is equal to 15. Remember, when you're solving an equation, you always do the opposite, and you always get rid of the lower operation first. So addition is lower than multiplication, so I'm going to get rid of addition first. And what I do to one side, I always do to the other. So the opposite of adding 1 is subtracting 1. So on this side, I get 2x. Positive 1 and negative 1 cancel out. 15 minus 1 is 14. Now the opposite of dividing or multiplying by 2 is to divide by 2. So x is equal to 14 divided by 2 is 7. There's my first problem. The second problem says x divided by 9. Remember, fractions are just mean division, and it means minus 4 equals to 8. Again, division is higher in the order of operations than subtraction, so I'm going to get rid of the subtraction first. The opposite of subtracting 4 is adding 4. Remember, do to one side what you do to the other. So x over 9, negative 4 and positive 4 cancel out. 8 plus 4 is 12. The opposite or inverse of dividing by 9 is multiplying by 9. So what I do to one side, I do to the other. These cancel, so I get x equals 9 times 12. Yeah, I know my 12s times singles is 108. And we're good. Now the last question asks what PEMDAS means. And this is the way that we remember order of operations. All right, P stands for parentheses. You always do what's in parentheses first. E stands for exponents. Always take care of the exponents. Multiplication, oops, I didn't need an A there. Multiplication and division are equally as powerful, and we always do them left to right. Addition and subtraction are again equally as powerful, and we do those left to right. But when we solve equations, we do the opposite. So when we're solving equations, the first thing we do is get rid of addition and subtraction. We get rid of multiplication and divisions second, then we get rid of exponents, and then we get rid of parentheses. And PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, is just a way that we use to remember that. All right. So teacher, pause the video if students have more questions. If not, we're going to go on back to the PowerPoint. So the next thing, there's the answers that we checked. I got those right. PEMDAS stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division as it appears left to right, addition and subtraction as it appears left to right, because they're equal. And please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, and there's my dear Aunt Sally. Quite an attractive woman, I think. All right, terminology. On your note taker, you have a vocabulary square. The first one is asking you to understand what the term literal equation is. So on your note taker, circle your level of understanding of what a literal equation is. So a check plus means I could probably define it. A check means I'm pretty confident about what it means. Check minus means at least I've heard the term before, and an X means I've never heard the term before. So the definition is it's an equation with more than one variable, such as a formula where constants are represented by variables. An example is perimeter equals a plus b plus c, which you can find the perimeter of a triangle. Perimeter equals 2 lengths plus 2 widths. That would be for the perimeter of a rectangle. So now on your note taker, go ahead and draw a picture to help you remember, or a drawing. Define it in your own words and write a meaningful sentence. If you have a connection right now, fill it in. If not, you can fill that in during the lesson. And teacher, pause the video, have students share their meaningful sentence with each other, and call on non-volunteers. Welcome back. Now, benefits to you. If it's in red on your note taker, what you need to do is fill in those words. Why are literal equations of a benefit to you? It's so you can rearrange formulas to highlight another quantity of interest. Makes it easier if you have to do many problems, always solving for the same variable. Example, to find the perimeter of a square, we use the formula perimeter equals 4 times s. If we solve for s, then we can always substitute in the perimeter and quickly find the side if that's what we need. Businesses often need to take formulas that are standard and rearrange them to meet their own need. All right, the steps, 2 things to do. We undo or solve by using inverse operations, as we do in solving regular old equations, to highlight the desired variable by doing the opposite order of information, or opposite order of operations, Inverse operations, adding and subtracting are inverse operations, multiplication and division are inverse operations, squaring and square rooting are inverse operations. And please remember, for step number 2, you have to do the same thing to both sides. All right. So write down on your note taker at least 2 key points from the steps. Teacher, pause the video, have the students go ahead and write them down, have them share their 2 key points with their partner, and call on non-volunteers, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. All right, you summarize. So to solve equations, undo in this order. We're going to get rid of addition and subtraction first, then multiplication and division, then exponents, and then parentheses. All right, remember to solve, you always do the inverse, or she's going to hit you with a rolling pin. All right, here's an example. We want to solve this equation, which is to find the perimeter of a triangle, and we want to solve it for C. All right, so get out your slates, remember what this formula is used for, and put it in your own words. Teacher, when the students have finished, have them show you their slates. Welcome back. Let's see. It was to find the perimeter of a triangle. Now, we're going to go to our slate, and we're going to try this formula. So we write down the formula. That's step number 1. Here's my formula. Perimeter is a plus b plus c. We want to solve for this guy. In other words, we want to get the c all by itself. He's attached to the a and b by addition. So the opposite of adding a is subtracting a. So I'm going to do that from one side and do the other. And I'm going to do these both in the same step. If you want to take it step by step, that's fine. So I'm going to subtract b from both sides. So here I go. I get p minus a minus b. These cancel because they're opposites. These cancel because they're opposites. And here I go. So side C is always the perimeter minus side A minus side B. You cannot simplify them anymore because they're not like terms. So in some ways, solving literal equations is much easier than solving regular because you usually don't have to do any arithmetic. All right. Time to check. Let's go back to our PowerPoint and see if I did it correctly. I did. Exactly right. So here's example number 2. All right. Number 2, V equals L times W times H. So on your slate, what's this formula used for? You should have seen it in junior high, or if you've taken geometry. Teacher, pause the video. When students are finished, have them show you their slates. Welcome back. Let's see. It's to find the volume of a rectangular prism. Kind of like a cube, but the sides don't have to be the same length. So let's go ahead and look at the problem. We want to solve this one, and it didn't say for which variable, so I'm just going to pick one. So let's go to our slide. Let's say volume equals length times width times height. And I'm going to pick that we're going to solve it for h. I want to find what the height would be given the volume, the length, and the width. Well, remember the inverse of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides. I don't want to have it be multiplied by L or W. So I'm going to divide both sides by L and W. L divided by L is just 1. W divided by W is just 1. So the volume divided by the length times the width would be equal to the height. Nothing to simplify, can't do any division, so let's go back and see. Let's clear that out. Let's go back to our PowerPoint and see. Exactly right, the height is equal to the volume divided by the length times the width. All right, let's look at example number 3. Example number 3, area is 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2 times the height. This is to find the area of a trapezoid. So on your slate, solve this formula, and I'd like you to solve this formula for, let's solve it for h again. So teacher, pause the video, have the students work it on their slates, have them compare with their partners, have them show you the answer, and then we'll come back in just a minute. Welcome back. Let's go to our slate and look at this problem. This is a little longer, not any more difficult, just a few more steps. Area is 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times h. Now there's several ways to get to this answer, but I don't want to distribute the half and then have half hanging over me for everything. So I think I'm going to get rid of this fraction of a half by multiplying both sides by 2. 2 times 1/2, base 1 plus base 2 times h. Well, 1/2 times 2 is 1, so these cancel. So I get 2 times the area is base 1 plus base 2 times h. I want h to be by itself, so I can just divide both sides by base 1 plus base 2. So these cancel. So the height is equal to twice the area divided by base 1 plus base 2. We could have solved for something that was a little more difficult, like if we would have had to solve for base 1 or base 2, but it's basically the same thing. If you can solve an equation, you can solve this too. Teacher, pause the video. Students need to look at the work anymore, and we'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Let's go back to our PowerPoint and see how we did. Oh, look, we got exactly the same answer. Just took a little longer for me to type that out, but we did exactly the same steps. Excellent. All right, now you try this one on your note taker. This is to find the perimeter of a rectangle. Perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And I want you to solve this one for W, please. Okay, pause the video, have students compare their work, call on non-volunteers, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Welcome back. Let's go to our slate and see how we would do it. Perimeter is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width, and I want to solve it for W. I just don't want to forget. So 2 times the length is added to 2 times the width. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the 2 times the length on the other side. So I get the perimeter minus 2 times the length. These are opposites, so they cancel, equals 2 times the width. Now I need to get the W all by itself, so I'm going to divide by both sides by 2. So W equals P minus 2L over 2. Be very careful. That's a perfectly good answer, but you cannot divide these two 2's out and cancel them. But you could say this is the same thing as P over 2 minus 2L over 2. Now the 2's can cancel, and you could get P over 2 minus L. I think personally I would probably just leave it like this, but if you really felt the need to simplify, this is where it goes. But don't cancel those two things out. You can only cancel out things that are attached by multiplication, not by subtraction. All right, pause the video if your students have questions. Welcome back. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. And here's a think, pair, share. We've already worked this problem, and there's my answer, And now for a closure, I want you on your note taker to say, fill out, I now understand, or I need more help with. Your choice of which prompt you want to use, fill it out on your note taker. Teacher, please have the students share with their partners and call on non-volunteers, and we'll see you back here next time.